Hello and welcome to another edition of Athletes Corner. All right, we got my man Sherard back with us. Last time he was here, we was talking social justice stuff, but we're gonna step away from that and we're gonna reflect on his athletic days because Sherrod, he's always sending me about DMs talking about does this remind him? Does this remind me of someone? But we're gonna talk about his days.
Or I'm responding to yours.
Yeah, either or. We're gonna talk about his days at Malden, playing at Malden High, and his college hoops days too. But first, we're gonna get into the high school days. Playing at Malden High. I remember you told me when you got there your freshman year. You said the coach he didn't play freshmen. He didn't allow freshmen to be on varsity,
Yeah,
if I'm correct. And you had the
that's right.
talent to be on varsity, but that was just his that was just his rule. He
That's
didn't
right.
allow freshmen. That is literally old school. Literally some old school stuff you'd hear from coaches like back in the 70s, 80s. No freshmen on varsity.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, yeah, I knew
Yeah,
that.
yeah, that's exactly what he said. That was a rule, and so this was my freshman year, uh, 2002, 2003, and so at that point in time, they didn't allow freshmen. So even if you had the talent, and even if you clearly had the talent, there wasn't any exceptions made for you. I felt good because I had a few of the folks who were on varsity saying, "Hey, look, I have a feeling you have a chance to make varsity this year. I don't know if you get much playing time, but you're good enough to at least make it." And then to be hit with this reality that this really isn't what we do. Yeah, I mean, it didn't hurt because I was only 14,
Yeah.
but it was at least it was saddening. I think to a degree. I had nothing else to shoot for in that way.
Yeah, but did you feel like, but you got the more minutes on JV, but did you feel like you're kind of being held back a little, being on JV, knowing that you could be with those guys on the varsity level?
Well, it's funny if you look at it two different ways to look at it. I got to give credit where credit's due. When so obviously freshman year, I didn't make varsity. Nobody did if you were a freshman. Really, even if you were a sophomore, but nobody did if you were a freshman. And so I was on freshman basketball, and this lanky kid out there, and people knew me. The way Malden worked is we had a series of middle schools. They used to have Malden Middle,
Mhm.
and then they got rid of that. And then you had a series of middle schools for years at this point. And then everybody who went to these various middle schools went to one high school or a couple high schools, but really the one public high school.
Mhm.
And that's where we went. And so, people knew you from your middle school, but not really from the other middle schools. So some folks knew I had talent. We played each other middle schools where we were. But the first practice happened when I made the team. I wasn't on the starting five. I was on the bench. Yeah, I was playing on the defensive side of the house.
Yeah.
And I made a vow that day to never let that happen again. So I went super hard in that practice. And I reclaimed, or I should say, I took a starting spot, which initially wasn't mine. Not many people know that from the very beginning, even folks on that team. And then to your current question, fast forward to sophomore year, and I remember JV tryouts were running concurrently with varsity tryouts, except we were on the other half of the gym.
Mhm.
And by sophomore year, I was a completely different basketball player. Summer going into sophomore year, I very much transformed uh, clearly into the guy you would come to know later on in your career. But sophomore year, summer going in, those signs started to show. So by the time JV trials hit, there was really only one conceivable place for me to be, but the coaches just weren't kind of having it. And I remember going through JV tryouts and uh, coming down the lane, just dunking on people, stuff I wasn't doing the year before. I was notorious for the mid-range jump shot, foul line extended,
Mhm.
up fakes, everything you needed to have in your toolbox to make varsity. Even at one point, someone went down on the varsity side of the house and needed someone to replace. Sherrod, can you come down? I said, yeah, sure. And this guy came up court, went for the ooey wapty, yoink, and I went down full court, another flush. So I was putting the work in,
Yeah.
but it just didn't happen. So yeah, it was absolutely frustrating knowing that I had the talent to be there. Definitely that year at
Mhm.
15, and it still was an opportunity for me.
And by junior year, that's when you're fully on there. Getting more minutes. What did you learn from those first 2 years that you were able to have it translate into varsity your junior and senior year?
Yeah, I had the chance to go up in sophomore year, so I actually went up. I went up sophomore year first. They kind of broke that mold for me, and I remember it was a day where me and a couple of my guys played in another camp as well, and the camp coach was coming to watch us. We were some of his best athletes, and the game he came to was a JV game, except I wasn't playing that day. I moved up to varsity, and my first ever varsity game, I had 6.7 blocks against Everett, which was one of those powerhouses in the area. And they gave me the choice, Sherard, do you want to stay up here on varsity, or do you want to head back down to JV? And I was torn because I wasn't sure. And ultimately it came down to, my coach essentially asking me, we have a chance here to build and to move into next year as a unit without missing a beat. We're going to have a record-breaking year for JV this year, and you can be with us, or you can go to varsity and maybe contribute off the bench, but you're not going to be able to grow and develop as much as you would if you stayed here in terms of the system. And so I chose to go back down to JV. We had a 17-win, 3-loss record that year. And for what it's worth, broke some records. People started coming out to the games that never came out to varsity. It was pretty cool to see that dynamic happen. So JV taught me a lot in terms of being comfortable with my game. And going into junior year, which was far and away probably the worst basketball year I had in high school, not just personally, but at the team level. I felt good going into junior year. I was ready for varsity for the last 2 years at this point. I think the challenge there was the seniors just weren't ready to pass that mantle. And for them, it was, you're my guy, Sherard, but, this is still my team. And I think that we spent that year trying to figure out who should lead the team and who shouldn't. And it kind of showed that miscommunication.
I find that always interesting that certain, the politics of basketball like that, because certain guys that's been on that level for a while, they don't want to give up the mantle, or they don't want to share it, understanding like this is a team thing. We need each other, but they're still trying to get theirs. They're still trying to get, if they're not heavily recruited, they're still trying to create highlights and make some noise so they could get recruited by somebody, no matter what level. So that's kind of the odd thing about the politics of basketball, is because on one hand you want to have the team success, but then the other hand, certain guys that want to play on the college level, they just want to get their points and get their stuff up.
These guys were all football players, which made it worse. They didn't have any interest in going college basketball. I did, but they didn't, so that made it more difficult.
And now we come to your senior year. We're gonna get to one of the games that we always talk about this year. Your last year playing in Malden. You talked about the Everett rivalry. You guys also have that rivalry with Somerville as well. That area. Your senior year, you also at this point were you getting heavily recruited, or were the recruiting letters coming in at this point?
Oh yeah. Going into senior year, I got offered to participate in a top 100 players camp on the East Coast, not national, top 100 on the East Coast players camp. You got to remember, I'm the same year as Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, folks like this. And so I'm at this camp, and this was my first time getting grandiose exposure. I had played AAU beforehand, but I never really got a chance to travel. I didn't come up from money. I used to go to practices in camps overnight with the trash bag over my shoulder and sort of the white T-shirt and wearing what I had. Yeah. This is my first time at a grandiose camp with kind of exposure, and you get to see, the 6'9" shooting guard. I'm over here 6'4.5" playing powerful and trying to figure out my life. So when I made this opportunity to hit senior year, I went to this top 100 camp, and that opened my eyes to a different kind of game. And you had to wear the school that was recruiting you. And for me, it was UMass Amherst at that time. Mm-hmm. And then as senior year went on, I know you're going to have other questions. I was getting looked at. I was a top 10 player in the state, and I was also a McDonald's All-American nominee at that point.
Some big stuff right there. And you also were involved in some other camps as well, where you played with some other guys that went on to play at high level. Can you talk a little about that?
Yeah. I mean, I had a great run. Again, just having that opportunity to go to that camp, and then other possibilities. There were other local camps like Hoop Mountain, something I kind of frequented a lot. I played AAU on the Middlesex Magic for a little bit with Corey Lowe, who wound up going to Boston University, and Providence, I think, is where he initially went or was going. I didn't play on AAU with Anthony Gurley, but he and I were connected for a while early on coming out of high school. There's a few of the folks that, my guy Mike Palladino way back, Deshaun Givens. I mean, there's a few folks who were at least locally known. And I played in the Bay State games where there were a lot of competitive forces at play in that particular atmosphere. And it was a nice opportunity to really cut my teeth and begin forming my senior year the way I wanted it to. So moving away from a specific focus in terms of the competition I'm used to playing, and then getting a chance to break out really, really aided my senior year for sure.
Yeah, and I always find that very interesting because some players, they don't get that opportunity because it's just they play high school and then they'll play in like summer leagues here and there. They won't necessarily do AAU or go to camps, but they just work on their games during summer camps. And then when you go to a camp like that and you see 5-star recruits, as you said, 6'9" point guards, those open up your eyes and like, oh, there's more for me as a player to work on. I think I'm good. But this guy 6'9", I'm 6'4", and he's a guard and I'm a forward. So my game has to change.
Yes, and I don't think I had that opportunity to do so. And by the time my coach was like, "Hey, Sherard, you might want to step out," I had already developed such a strong traditional big man's game that there weren't enough games in the season for me to master another part of my game. And I think it would have done more harm than good. Another name I'd mentioned is Jimmy O'Keefe, who was Massachusetts Player of the Year in 2006. And he was a traditional big man. He wound up going to Bates in Maine. He and I connected and played, and we're pretty good friends at this other camp. When I told you the coach came out to watch us play at JV, so I knew him for a few years. He was in Lexington though, so we only played once in like a summer camp, but they weren't in the same conference with us. And so I knew how he was doing a lot of work all year, and a few other people. So I said, well, I could still do the back to basket and operate in the mid range. My guy at that time was Jermaine O'Neal. He was who I was trying to model my game after. And I was doing well. There was no need for me to change. But, when you look back, hindsight, not only did I always think that expanding my game would have helped, I just wish that opportunity came earlier, and it just wasn't there for me.
Yeah. And so you guys, your senior year, you guys make a run at it. Can you just talk about some of the highlights during the season and then going into the tournament? What were some of your favorite moments of that senior year prior to the tournament game?
Oh, man. It was a breakout year for the team in total. And it was the first time that I was captain. So I think my skills were speaking for itself the entirety of my 4 years. I didn't have the same relationship with the coaches other folks did. We had a great relationship, but other people were given the captain mantle, which didn't bother me. So senior year came in, I became captain as well, co-captain. It just hits you differently with the title, and you get to take responsibility in a different way. And so going into senior year, there are a lot of things Malden High hadn't done. We hadn't beaten Cambridge on the road. We hadn't really beat Everett in any real capacity. I don't even know if we beat Cambridge at all in the school's history. A lot of schools we didn't play. We didn't do well against. And going into my senior year, it was the first time that we had the coach at varsity was our JV coach. It's his first time coaching varsity. Mm-hmm. It's all of our first time really getting a chance to breathe. By this year, everybody on the team were my guys. So we came up together and played at the local courts pretty much our entire lives ever since middle school. So we knew each other's games like the back of our hands. We knew if the screen was coming, we knew where the lob should go. We knew where to find you on the wing if that's somewhere where you were supposed to be. We were just clicking. So a couple of things that stand out to me are obviously for myself, we beat Cambridge, Ringe and Latin for the first time in school history. And we also did it on the road and in overtime. And I remember having 28 points, 23 rebounds. And I remember that game pretty vividly, had about 5 blocks as well. We didn't get along with Cambridge. They used to have the police at those games all the time. Each team had probably the 2 biggest trash talkers in the conference. And then we beat Arlington and we beat Boston Latin as well that same week. And Boston Latin wasn't in our conference. And so that was my first time, Latin Academy, excuse me, not Boston Latin, Latin Academy. And it was my first of 2, Eastern Conference or Eastern Massachusetts Player of the Weeks, which is pretty cool to get. So that as a team, we beat a lot of these teams that we didn't get a chance to beat in the past. Everett was another one we beat at the buzzer, I believe, and really put the work in. People don't realize that the Pressey boys were in town that year and only for that year. So Matt Pressey and Phil Pressey, they played at Waltham, and we went to Waltham and got 45 pieced. It was bad. It was bad. When they came to Malden, which was the second time we played, I had just gotten the McDonald's All-American nominee. So it was in the air for the entire conference to hear. And, people had me on the calendars to hear this guy. And mind you, I'm 6'5", 170 at this time, 165 even. So I'm light. I just played with my IQ most of the time. Mm-hmm. And the game began, and Matt Pressey was on me. And he was the older brother. And I was excited because I couldn't wait to do work on him, or at least give it a go. And then he switched off me for whatever reason. I put somebody else on me, and that was probably where the tide began to turn for them. They probably should have kept Matt on me. But I remember Phil Pressey, and this stands out to me. He's a younger brother. He was like 5'2", 115. He was tiny.
Quick. So quick.
Quick. He was 14. He was a baby. He was LaMelo Ball before LaMelo Ball was even speaking. I'm sure he was a baby at that point. I remember Phil Pressey would come up court. Here, full court press, didn't matter. He was just, and he comes to the middle. And I was notorious for sending shots. I mean, defensively, I was a Kevin Garnett type of rim protector. Mm-hmm. And he came through the middle at the foul line, threw up a floater. And I could rise. I had at that time, about a 36, I think, inch vertical or so. He went up, and I went up for it. And he put just enough English on the floater. I still see it today, where the ball was like, and my hand was like right here. Nothing but net cash. He just came right back. Like, it was no problem. Anyway, we wound up beating him, which was cool. Made the papers and stuff like that. But that among many others stand out to me right away.
Yeah. And when you guys made the tournament, was there a time was this the first time you guys made a tournament in a while, or did you?
Yeah. It was.
How long?
I think it was definitely double digits. Could have been 10 years. Could have been 10 plus. I can't remember. We beat Medford to clinch it. Mm-hmm. We had an even record. I think we were like 10-10, 11-11.
Okay. And okay, so you just talk about that. Just being able to end that drought, giving your team an opportunity to make a run at the state championship.
Yeah. It was fantastic. I mean, it was something that nobody had ever seen. We used to always dream about it, of course, and mess around in the backyard. It was really just a matter of waiting until we all got a chance to be together. Our point guard going into senior year didn't play that year. He wasn't eligible to play that particular season. So we had a new point guard who came up in the city with us, but he didn't play with us. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was there. He was a football guy. He was a quarterback, like sort of like an all-state type quarterback.
You guys had a lot of football guys on your team.
A ton, and that senior year showed there as well. Going into senior year, our original point guard was there. We had a tournament at Northeastern, and that tournament was incredible. We made it to the finals, and we knocked off a ton of teams. One team from Germany we knocked off. We knocked off a few other squads, and I had 2 back-to-back 40-plus performances. And my point guard was instrumental in that. He would just break people down, leave it up. I would just come and flush it. Newton North, where Corey Lowe and Anthony Gurley, I mentioned earlier, were in that tournament. They got bounced by a squad from Long Island, who we met in the finals. Now, everybody was anticipating us, Malden High versus Newton North, to be in this finals. And we were waiting for it because we knew each other well enough. I mean, some of us knew each other better than others. We just weren't in the same conference. And so we were just waiting to get our hands on these folks and vice versa. But they lost, sadly. So we played this Long Island team in the finals, and it went down to, I think, double or triple OT. We wound up losing there as well. And so our point guard from all of that building with us wasn't there senior year. And so we made the best of what we had. Our point guard at the time wasn't terrible. He was good. He was good enough to keep an offense going, I think. And that's really what we needed at that point in time. And being able to deal with the highs as well as the lows. I mean, I was doing great individually. I led the conference in a couple of areas, but we were still losing games, and we probably had like a 2-game winning streak at most during that season, maybe 3. and then we would drop a couple, and then we'd maybe go back for 1 or 2 or 3 and drop a couple. So by the time we got to Medford and clinched the playoffs after that game, it was just such a breath of fresh air. And that was a game where some folks have seen this picture in the past that know me. And it was a picture of me kind of going up for a flush, and somebody's like right underneath me, and his face is all, and it's right before the ball goes in. And that was that game. I went to the low block and I posted, and someone hit me with the low left, and the defender cheated, and I kind of caught it. One power dribble went up, one hand flush, threw it down, and we clinched shortly after that. That was near the tail end of the game. And then we were just excited to see who our conference or our tournament opponents are going to be. And, but even before that, we wanted to know where our placement was going to be. And I remember when it came out, we were, I think we were 15. We were 18 of like 18 or of like 20. We were going against 15. Yeah. And we can talk about that if you feel comfortable.
Let's talk about that. Yeah, that was so. You guys get matched up with my high school, Lynn English High, which was we had an up and down season ourselves that year. It was a lot of guys were like in and out, and there was a lot going on with that team. But this was the head coach, Coach Ron Bennett, rest in peace to him. This was his last year coaching. He's been there since like the 60s. He had runs. He almost got close a few times, but they'd get to Lowell and they'd lose to Charlestown. It was always they'd always lose to the team that eventually won it. So this particular
Charlestown was tough.
Yeah, they were. They
were. They were legit. Really, a few other folks. Yep.
Yeah. So this is Malden at Lynn English. This is it, and you guys come out with the victory. And I'll tell you this: like the next day, we watched in my video production class. We actually watched the game over. Yeah, because the guy he had to edit it and put it up, send it to the people.
Sure.
Public access. Yeah, so we were watching it, and I could never. That was such a foul that they didn't call.
I don't even know. You say it all the time. I honestly don't know what play it is. What play is this?
It was at the end. It was towards the end of the game. I think you guys were up by like 1 or 2 or something like that.
It was a close game. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a close game. You guys had just took the lead, so this is pretty much like the final play of the game. I mean, Cesar, he got to the hole. I don't know, one of you guys hit him in the head. I laughed because I saw him the next day, and he was shaking his head. He got hit in the head, and then the dude got the ball too. He got hit in the head, and the ref didn't call it. And I was just like, I was sitting there like, man, if the school's open, I wish I could get the tape because I think the school still has it. If the building was open,
that'd be cool to see it again.
Yeah, but it was one of those like it was kind of a bang play, but it was the on the head that killed me.
Which is wild because the game was at your house. I mean, it was in Lynn.
Yeah.
So you would think the call would go your favor.
You would think, but I think that was one of those. The rest was like, we're not going to decide the game.
It was too tight. We were an aggressive team. You have to remember, we came from a very aggressive conference. I mean, we were used to. I don't doubt that a foul could have been called there. I don't remember the play, but knowing how we operated, knowing how we got down, with a bunch of football players as well, and I have a mind of who it could have been, especially if they went to the basket. We had a couple of enforcers on the team, and whose job was to protect me in many ways. And so I don't doubt that. But we were very aggressive in play anyway. Yeah. And if we set the tone early with that, then I think the refs would have just been a little bit more lax down the road. I think the problem was they had that much size either. Guard heavy. Yeah. Guard heavy. We didn't have that much size. So you play a team like you guys, we're gonna get killed on the offensive. Yeah, we were tall.
That's one of the key problems in that game. They were just they didn't have the size. I think we had one guy 6'7", but he was like 6.
Wouldn't have mattered. Just one person. Yeah. No,
he was skinny.
Our whole starting line. We had I think we had either 1, 2, 3. We had 3 over 6 feet, and then right after that was like 5'10". So you can even count this guy if you wanted to.
Yeah, just talk about getting that victory. You end the drought of not making the tournament, and you get in the tournament. Your first tournament game, you guys get the win. Just talk about the overall feeling in that game, man. Even though that was a foul, but
Man, it's weird because that tournament game should be one of the ones I remember almost play by play, and I don't. What I do remember is that by that point, a few scholarship opportunities I wanted had fallen through, because a few of the top tier schools that were looking at me at that point, it was like Northeastern, UMass Amherst, LaSalle, even Pace University, D2 was looking at me. A few of the schools were on the bubble, Fordham University. Mm-hmm. They all wanted the game of Malden High beating Cambridge, Ringen Latin. That was my player of the week. They wanted the tape, yeah, and so that was the player of the week game, and player of the week, and it was one of two, and they wanted that one because I ran off. My average for that week was insanity. I was shooting like, I think it was something like 75% from the field, and it was something ridiculous. I was averaging like it's like 25 and 24. And plus the Cambridge game had history behind it, and folks know that, that's what Patrick Ewing went, Ramil Robinson, a few other folks. And the Cambridge coach wouldn't give it to him. And for some reason, we couldn't access it at Cambridge Public Access, but he was like, his words were, not going to let your player profit or benefit off of our loss, essentially. Right?
Wow.
So I learned, yeah. Wow. So those schools kind of pulled out, and then kind of went my scholarships for the rest of I still had a good season. I didn't learn this till later on, but all I know is that they weren't at the tournament. And, Curry College, where I wound up going, my first year, D3, they were at the tournament. And so that was something that came from there. I do remember that, but I remember for sure being super nervous in that game. I didn't really get nervous during the basketball games, but I was nervous there because it was a first. It wasn't something I can compare it to. It took me a little while to heat up. I remember getting one dunk.
It was a pretty packed house too.
Yeah. It was. Oh yeah, we had a lot of people from Malden there. I know the girls made the tournament every year and usually won it, and so their game was opposite ours, so they showed up, and so we felt good going in. I do remember the nerves. I remember playing pretty well. Could have been better, but I think if we had a best of three, I would have showed up a lot differently game two. But I'm just happy we got it done.
Honestly. I mean, you move on and you go play a top team in the state. These guys,
too, yeah.
These guys were doing the run and gun Phoenix Suns type of offense back then. Get it up, launch the threes, and.
Were you there at all at that game?
No, I wasn't there.
Okay.
I wasn't at that game, but these guys. We see them twice a year. We saw them twice a year.
Okay. Yeah.
There's that Lynn Salem rivalry.
Yeah. Makes sense.
But these guys, they just, every two you score, they match it with a three. They could be that. You could be up 12. You could be up 15 on them with a blink of an eye. They'll be up 5 points just because they just launched those threes and they would make it too. That team was a tough team.
Yes, and two of those guys I saw later on in college, which was always interesting to me. And we never forgot that game. We were going bucket for bucket was never a concern for us. We were always, for the most part, going to be, if not easily one of the most physical teams on the court that day. Oftentimes the most physical. And again, coming from at the time the GBL, the Greater Boston League, we were a very aggressive, physical league. Arlington, Cambridge, Everett, Somerville, even way back before they changed it, Revere was in there. I mean, a lot of scrappy, by the water, dense populated cities that were part of that conference, Medford. And so we were used to banging. Salem didn't want to bang. And I think that threw us off because this was the first team. I mean, Lynn has that reputation anyway, so y'all wanted to get scrappy. We were comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Salem didn't want to bang. This is the first team we played, period. And any game of consequence where folks didn't want to play our way. Although we controlled the glass, it didn't matter. Not enough shots were coming off. And like you said, we won the tip. Our tip play, I swing it down to someone else, bucket. And so we were comfortable early. But every two was a three. You said it beautifully, man. And we went into the half not down too far. Mm-hmm. We could have even been up one, tied, or down not by a lot. But coming out of the second half, they came out swinging. And I remember momentum shifting a little bit. Stands were packed again. I laughed because it was the Salem Witches versus the Malden High Golden Tornadoes. It was just the weirdest build you ever heard in your life. And I remember faking right, going baseline, getting the pass, and throwing it down on some dude. It was a pretty unattractive for him dunk. It was ugly. And it shifted momentum slightly, but I heated up a little too late, I think, in that game. I was notorious for being like a second half performer a lot of my career.
Yeah.
I give you 4 points first half, 28 second half. I was always that kind of guy. And I don't think that was the time and place for that. It showed up.
And I think that's probably one of those games. If you had your actual point guard, it'd be
Yeah, oh yeah.
You'd probably
Right.
getting more
Right.
first half points just because from
Right.
him having there. But
Yep.
that team was tough. That team they were
They
tough.
were tough. Yeah.
Big. But and then you move on. The season's over. You move on. First, you start off at Curry College, and then
Mhm.
you only there for a year, correct?
That's right. 1 year.
For 1 year, and then you go to Wheelock College, and that's when you had a lot of success there, playing 2 years over
2
there.
years. Yeah.
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 Just quickly, just talk about the transfer from Curry to the experience at Curry, and then just going to Wheelock.
Oh man. I think so. The going to Wheelock is going to be probably the most important part of the story. But Curry, I got recruited, heavily recruited, and at the time, their guy was Tim Jones, who he and I became pretty close. He wasn't a guy that rocked with many freshmen. He was like your at the time, he was your stereotypical like veteran, don't talk to me, do my laundry type mentality. Not that he actually said those things, but that was his. And he connected to me for some weird reason, and I connected back to him. He was captain, and we were good. I think the average age of that team was like 24. We had a guy like Toby Britton who played at Northeastern. We had Steve Prescott. We had my man Marvin Lamar. We had Tim Jones. We had folks who were recruited at these top level institutions, John Bowers. And here I am, this little 18-year-old thin freshman out here rocking out. Darius Abramson, who was on the 2-time Newton North championship team at this starting center. And I made good friends with my man Mark Mastrullo, who was
Bill Ricker, right?
up in the Bill Ricker, yeah, and my man, you remember my man Johnny D, who was at Chelmsford. He led the state in scoring that year. And you want to talk about a gunner? And this dude,
I played in the league.
We had a base.
I played in the league.
We had a base 8 games. You did? Yeah. We had a base 8 games practice once, and Johnny was on the other team. He was on our team, but on on the practice squad on the other squad. Yeah. And he beat us 5-4. The game was a 5. He beat us 5-4, just gunning. Anyway, we had a very scary team. Just like my freshman year in high school, though, I didn't start off on that starting squad. I was coming off the bench during practice. Darius Abramson was starting. He had that reputation. I just knew I was a better player. Love to Darius, no disrespect. I just knew I had a lot more to offer. If he started, I would have understood. Mm-hmm. But I made it my mission to get out there. I remember the coach saying, "I know all of you all have issues and are upset at stuff. I know Sherard thinks he should be starting as a freshman, something that they didn't really do at Curry." Yeah. And I'm like, yeah. Long story short, man, first game comes around. It's a tournament in Pennsylvania. It's my first time really traveling in life. And it's like a bunch of different schools there. And, Rutgers, Camden was there, Baldwin Wallace, a few other folks. Before the game begins, I remember I had this ridiculous back pain. I don't even know what to do. Like it was excruciating. And I was like, I don't even know if I could rock out. Someone's like, "Hey, man, assistant coach, try this, some Motrin. I've never taken Motrin in my life at this point. Pop 2, changed my life. I take Motrin to this day. I don't use any other medicine to this day. I use Motrin." Went out there and I rocked out and I started and I played all 40 minutes. And I didn't learn this till later on, but I want to be an all tournament at that particular game. Me and that tournament, me and maybe one other guy. So me and Mark Mastrullo were the only 2 freshmen that started there. And it was a very, very good sort of warm experience. Now, I don't mean to be a little lengthy in the story, but there's a little bit more to it. Mm-hmm. As the season progressed, my game got better. I got more confident. Nobody got yelled at more on that team than me. I used to get annihilated. And 2 things. One, I was not used to that. I was always a man. And so being chewed out threw me off. I knew I wasn't going to be option 1 or 2 on that team. I wanted to shoot for 3. Even that was up in the air. We had so much talent. Mm-hmm. But I was playing 40 every night. So it just wasn't computing to me. Later on, someone told me, Sherard, and I tell my kids this, and I tell the folks I work with, it's when the coach stops yelling at you that you should be concerned. And that always stuck with me in life, period. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, okay, well, and folks would come and try to pick me up. Although I wasn't down, I was trying to understand what was going on. So I kept putting the work in. And then one game, And I don't share the story much, but one game we were playing Colby Sawyer or someone like that up in Maine or New Hampshire, one of the two. My brother-in-law and sisters were in the stands, and the coach, it's like February, around my birthday. So coach screamed, "Chew me out." I remember barking back first time. Came people on the bench like, what the heck? What's this dude? And I'm just the kind of dude in life that I'm respectful. I go about the process. I don't try to tear authority down unless it's unjust, as we know. Being from Boston, it's very hierarchical, so you learn to respect the process. I think a bunch of stuff was just pent up, and I came off at him, and I just went off. And from that point on, my minutes went tremendously, like 40 to like 13.
Yeah.
And I knew that if I stayed at Curry, this was going to be my experience. If he let me back on the team, even he had a talk with me afterwards, saying something like, "You have to figure out if this is the place you want to be or not." And I said, "All right, well, I'll let you know." And at the end of that year, so this is 2007, I made a decision to forego my time at Curry. Now, again, I don't come from crazy funds or anything like that. We clearly came up from the projects, and so I didn't have experience with loans or how to go about this. I didn't know how to properly withdraw from a school. I didn't know what was going on. So I just didn't re-enroll. Somebody told me later on in 2007, they called my name for class. I wasn't there, of course, because I wasn't going back, but I withdrew. And some people took issue with that. Sure, I saw if he can't take it, everybody gets yelled at. What's the deal with him? But for me, it was about something more. And I kind of saw the writing on the wall. Now, if my playing time didn't decrease and we were able to hash it out as men, I think I would have been okay. The fact that wasn't an option let me know that this wasn't going to work for me. My dreams were too great. So I found myself on the periph, 2007, trying to figure out what to do. Landed a job at the Reebok headquarters in Canton. And I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. And not the Reebok, store. This is the headquarters, if you've never been there. Helipad up top. Yao Ming walking around, anybody who signed there, any sport. I was in the stock room, and just trying to figure out what to do in my life. Working 2 jobs. I was delivering for Papa Gino's, at night. So I was driving up in my little car to kind of do what I can. And my brother Saturn, actually, like 9 to 3, coming back home. Papa Gino's 5 to close every day. But at Reebok, I've had some good relationships. I met my guy Alan Brown, who was known in a different capacity. And he put me on to some basketball. And to this day, maybe minus my little stint in North Carolina, which if we get to that, I'll share that. But to this day, that Reebok competition, of all the competition I played in my life, was the stiffest and the best. Like that competition. And we played in different circuits and around different leagues in the city. It did so much for my game. I was just 19 at the time.
Yeah. And
I'm going to say this last piece, and then I'm going to let you take your questions where you want to go. I just want to fill in these gaps for you. And then how I got to Wheelock to kind of close this bridge is I was playing in an alumni game from Malden High, and I was just out here trying to figure my life out. The old varsity coach says, "Hey, Sherard, I hear you're out of school." I said, "Yeah, trying to make it." "Have you talked to John Preziosa, who was like a local guy? He's the new coach at Wheelock College." "Where?" "Wheelock College." I had no idea what that was. Then give him a call and we'll talk. So I gave Prez a call, and he's like, "Hey, I'm the new coach here. I was going to take a coach job at Newberry, but I took Wheelock. He used to be an assistant coach at Salem State for a while." And he's like, "We want you. We're rebuilding, or building, really. They didn't have a basketball team before, and we want you." And that's how I wanted that Wheelock College.
Gotcha. And time's going. And with that, you accomplished a lot. You became the first player over there to score 1,000 points, over 1,000 points. 1,200 and some change in two seasons. Just talk about that, being able to be the first to do that. Knowing the situation you came from Curry, and then getting a new opportunity and helping build a program.
Yeah, well, a lot of that was a good amount of that groundwork was laid in that first year. So I transferred over in the spring. So I guess technically I played 2.5 years there. Spring of 2008 is when I first got there. And I didn't get a chance to play out of conference play. So only conference play, which was like 12 games or so. And in those 12 games, I scored like 450 points total. It's coming off of a Reebok, if you will, competition that was D1 and up. I'm coming to a D3 institution. It's no knock on the competition there. It just wasn't, I mean, the facts are there just wasn't the D1 competition I was used to playing. So when the game got going, I was going at a level that other folks just weren't on average going at. I was having 35-point games, 30-point game regularly. 30 and 20 one game was, but we never won a game. They had one win. It came without me. It was a semester prior, so out of conference play. So we were 1-26 that year. I made second team all conference. I led the conference in, I think, 8 statistics. It didn't matter. We couldn't get the job done. And so it was a difficult moment to be a part of because I had never been on a losing team in that way. And I was excited to rebuild for the years moving forward, which is ultimately what we wound up doing.
Mm-hmm. And through all that, you had a good time at Wheelock College. Just overall, what did you learn from that experience playing those 2 years there? And lastly, we'll get to that North Carolina story before we go.
Yeah, sure. I learned a lot, man. I learned how to lead in a different capacity. I think in high school, I wasn't much of a verbal leader, and even in college, I wasn't like a crazy verbal leader, but I was a little more passionate. I emoted a little differently in college than I did in high school. Mm-hmm. I shied away from some of the strong suits that worked for me in high school, staying a little bit close to the basket, and I backed up some more in college. I think I was trying to fulfill that. What happened if I moved back? Shot a lot of mid-range jumpers. I looked at some highlights last year at some point. I was like, oh man, like I hate this style of play. Like I need to get in there and drop a shoulder or two. And I was just like, and it was working, and I wound up being all conference my senior year. And we wound up going, should have gone to the tournament that year, but we didn't. But like I said, Massachusetts basketball isn't very highly regarded. So a lot of the same people. And it was just cool at other points to see some of the same people while you were there. And I scored 1241 and had a cool day on 1,000 points. And so it was cool.
And Elijah, tell me about that North Carolina story.
I played in sort of, I guess, what could be considered a semi-pro opportunity when I was down there. And it was that competition was very stiff. And everybody there was 6'8", 6'9", shooting guard, everybody. But by then, I was so far removed from organized hoop in that way that I was able to develop my own game. So I was able to hang right with them. And that was just a cool experience. I always played with my glasses on, except for in college. And my glasses always broke all the time. So sometimes the games had to stop short.
You never wanted to wear the goggles?
I got them now for what it's worth, but I haven't touched a basketball in 3 years. So it's laying in wait. Yeah.
Last time I was down there?
Last time you were here. Yes. Well, not obviously you were here for the wedding. So the time you stayed for a decent amount of time with us was the last time I picked up a basketball because we just messed around down the court. Yeah. I hadn't played organized since the January leading up to that. So that was a minute ago.
You get when things open up, you getting back into it, or is it a wrap?
I got a 5-month son now. I got my own company. And it's just a matter of finding time. I'd like to, but I'm not quite sure where.
Yeah, that sounds like it's a wrap.
I hope not.
Well, maybe when Slay starts.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm too proud at that point. Can't have him out here trying to body me.
All right, man. Where is he? He asleep?
I think it's with my wife. He was waking up when I saw him, but he probably laid back down. Who knows?
Yeah, kids,
babies.
Man. Yeah, time. Right. Hey, man. Once again, appreciate it as always.
Yeah, man.
That was a foul.
I got to see the tape again, man.
I'm gonna see when things open up. I'm gonna see if the school has it. The schools have it because they dumped a lot of the tapes prior to everything before 2007. They dumped it. So.
Oh.
Yeah. We got some goofies here, but that's
the heck. Okay.
Yeah, makes no sense. But let them know where they can find you. Let them know the website, the business, all that good stuff.
Yeah, man, has absolutely nothing to do with what we talked about.
It doesn't, but still got to get that plug in.
Yeah, man. Visceral Change is the company. That's the logo in the background. www.visceralchange.org. And then we're an organizational development consultancy. So we help folks reframe. We focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. You can find us at Visceral Change. You can find me at VC_founder.
There you go. That is my man, Sherard Robbins. Always good catching up with him. I ain't been in Arizona in 3 years, so
Nah, man, 2 years.
What we in?
Top of 21 now, so
June. When was your wedding? 2019?
2019, June, June 15th.
Oh, yeah, that's a long time. All right, after the pandemic, because I got to come check Slay out, let him know his daddy be hacking.
It wasn't me who fouled. I know that for a fact. I was clean. I remember that.
I know. You guys been watching Athletes Corner. Have a great day.